Well, good afternoon or good evening for this week's Tuesday Norseman News live at 5. I'm aware it's actually 5:55 and we're going to be live at 6 today, but I'm just coming on a couple minutes early while I get a cup of coffee ready. Maybe I'll do that kind of as part of the cast each week for now on, or something to that effect for fun. I'm going to, move it over. I'm actually going to do something about that intense background light next week as well. And so anyway, I had some things to do this afternoon or this evening, and I haven't got any actual live viewers yet. Well, I've had a couple pop in and go, so I didn't think anybody would mind terribly if the episode started a little late this evening. And though that is not an excuse, and we will try to be much more punctual in the future. So, but you're also going to listen to me make a cup of coffee while we wait for people to join, even though there's maybe nobody joining. So, but maybe I'll do that for the first 5 minutes each week from now on. Also, it's spring, and spring is definitely sprung here, so I'm wearing spring blue just to celebrate spring today. So, tomorrow is tax day, so super unhappy about that. And that's going to certainly be part of what we talk about today, because we are absolutely taxed to death here. And we're going to stay focused on the idea, and we're going to stay focused on talking about that. You know, the narrative here that cannot be understated during this election period, what really cannot be understated is how these outsider Democrats, or whatever these Democrats are, have taken our surplus to a deficit. They've wiped us out while raising our taxes $10 billion. I don't know. Part of that, too, we're going to discuss some things, but part of that, I don't know. I shared Lisa Demuth came out this week with, and the Minnesota House Republicans came out with, a new plan that includes a $3.8 billion tax cut. So, that's big news for Minnesota. We need to really, that's only a beginning though. That's only if you will, a token crumb thrown to us to show the intention, because long term, that $10 billion in taxes didn't need to be raised at all. So we somehow ended up with a surplus before that. Okay? So we didn't need to raise taxes $10 billion. And we didn't need to spend that $10 billion plus the 18. So let's stay focused on that. Not that this whole reason I'm even starting this right now is to try to counter the completely false narratives they're trying to push about all of this. So that's what our main mission is here leading up to the midterms, is that here in Minnesota we can stay, stay extremely focused on our political goals here in Minnesota, which is to completely purge the Minnesota Democrat Party of whatever these coasty invaders are that have poured into our state from other places and represent some type of faction that clearly doesn't represent Minnesota and doesn't represent even the DFL. So, do Democrat voters want to hear from a lifelong Republican what represents their party? Probably not. But anybody from the outside, whether independent or Republican or even Democrat, should be able to recognize that what's going on in your party now is not representative of Minnesota and our values, our history, our culture, our priorities. It's literally an outside invasion, and we need to stay really focused on the fact that we are being invaded by outside carpetbaggers who have brought in what would be what I'm calling a political mercenary force, not insinuating that they're, a military force. I'm not into all this rhetoric about, military-aged men and blah, blah, blah. So let's not, let's not be confused. We're talking about a political and economic mercenary force that came in here and participated with them in that. Okay, so you can say, they're innocent, whatever. They're not really innocent. Are they the main focus? No. Do they have to go? Yes. Did they participate? Yes. They have to go. We've talked about that in previous episodes. So we need to stay focused on that narrative. You have people that you can't look at. Here, part of that we're going to discuss too. The Crow Wing County Board meeting was today, this morning. I didn't watch it live, but I watched, it's posted on YouTube, and I watched afterwards. And the first speaker was some female that got up there talking about, I just moved here, but, my opinion matters. So she's been here in this county anyway. I don't know about Minnesota. I'm sure she came from the city. But she's been here in this county for a year and a half as a ambulance person. Respectable. I'm not saying it's not, but of course it's one of these, it's kind of a cliche character, these Minnesota white liberal ladies that are all, nurses and HR ladies and working at wherever, it's all just the same. They all look the same. They all think the same. It's just like a flock of foolishness flying around, crapping all over the state. And she wants to stand up there, tell a story about her grandmother who immigrated here as the wife of a military person. And that's similar to my situation. And she wants to compare that to illegal immigrants and Somalis who came here 5 minutes ago. They're not here from marriage or adoption or some other legitimate reason like the Hmongs, or pretty much a lot of the people who came here prior to that, were here for legitimate reasons or whatever. So also in the news this week, is the fact that Europe's also turning the same way. Even Germany, uber liberal Germany, and then the EU as a whole, they all want the Syrians to go home, and now Syria says no. So we were all big racists in this and that for saying we don't want to get flooded with millions of refugees that don't fit with our value system at one time. That somehow made us racist, but then them going home, them saying, no, we don't want them to come home, that's okay. So the hypocrisy is just next level this week. And then, of course, we have what happened last week with Easter, and now we have this week with an even bigger blasphemy from, Donald J. Trump. So, I've been finished with him anyway, but that's something we got to talk about too, and we got to really, really push that idea out there. Whatever chat rooms you're in, whatever discussions you're in, you got to make it clear to people that what's going on in here in Minnesota with the Minnesota Democrat Party, okay, is not what's going on with the Trumpster or whatever is not relevant to what's going on here. Okay, you're not voting. You can vote separately nationally than you do on the state level. You can vote differently on the state level than you do on the county level. So there's no. We really got to push back hard this cycle on this idea that our vote here is going to be dependent on whatever is going on with Trump. Okay, so that's just a separate thing on the national level. It has to stay separate on the national level, and we have to stay really focused. The plan that Demuth came out with in the House Republicans, Minnesota House Republicans came out with this. That was not some kind of Masonic symbol, by the way. I'm completely anti-Masonic. I can't believe I just did that. I usually don't do that. That's interesting. Yeah, that was not some kind of Masonic symbol. But we have to stay focused on Minnesota state politics and our Minnesota state priorities, which has to be to purge this insanity out of the Minnesota Democrat Party, and then hopefully turn that into votes for the Republicans. That's my hope, obviously. So, yeah. Anyway, hold on one more second. We'll wait to see. I did see somebody popped in, but then left again. So, I know that I would be a lot better off not talking at all about Trump, not talking at all probably about Israel and all that stuff. I know I could just jump on the hate Israel bandwagon real quick, but that's not me. I have to stick to stick to the correct narrative, and that's really the point here. Is I'm trying to keep things on the right path and on the right narrative, and not let people just flip it and switch it to something that it's not. So, yeah. So those are a couple things we'll talk about today. Also, it was tax week, and that is certainly going to have to be a part of the discussion today too, because and which is part of the whole thing here in Minnesota. It's just insane, actually. We pay a lot in taxes, and they're trying to put, that's another thing that's like a narrative shift that's going on. I see a lot of stuff like these little news clips and stuff talking about, oh, people are getting bigger, better returns. I've heard that from some people, but the only people I've heard that from are people who don't really work or work very little. Because I know that we pay an enormous amount in taxes, and it seems like no matter how much we pay, they always want more at the end of the year. And now, I don't know if you saw that, I shared that story this week also, but they've got Democrats already proposing they want to now just tax all your, quote-unquote wealth, whatever your assets, total assets or wealth or whatever is, they're just going to tax some of that every year, and just so you can't build wealth. I just don't know who's supporting this stuff or why they're supporting it. Okay, so if it's just, there's enough people that are just taking, not trying to build anything, and just have resentment for anybody that does want to or is able to save. People might look at us building a little something and say something, but we don't smoke or drink or go to the gas station or go to fast food or waste all our money on all that stuff. We actually, both me and my wife, when the kids were under school age, they would go to, or she would be home with them, but once they were school age, she would be working. And she works, and she's worked for many years now, full-time in manufacturing with me. We've both had good jobs that pay well, but we had 4 kids, which was our choice. But I mean, that also shouldn't be like it's either kids or poverty or poverty, kids and poverty, or not poverty, no kids, So the point is that we are far from wealthy. The only reason we have anything is, I got some help from my best friend, who is a pretty successful person, and helped me make some good decisions, which is kind of a shout out to another friend of mine, Mark, who shared a meme this week that talked about how one of the keys to success, it was some like billionaire, inspirational thing or something. But he was just talking about when he was young, he had somebody who helped guide him in help them make good decisions and things like that. And that is very important. That's also, the whole idea of having a father and fathers staying married and taking care of their families and following the Lord and doing the right thing. That gives the next generation a huge advantage. It really does. But again, that aside, why are we getting taxed? We don't have any kind of, why are we getting taxed into poverty? Why are we getting charged into poverty? It doesn't even make sense. It's not like we're wealthy or anything like that. And then just because we have a couple of things that we only got because of extreme frugality and lots of hard work from two people who sacrificed a ton and whose kids did not get to live any kind of lavish life, though they lived a much more lavish life than they would like to admit. I mean, they still had band and trips and all this other stuff. I don't want to get into it, but kids these days are surprisingly ungrateful for the blessings they do have, in my opinion. Just because I think a lot of people from my generation, probably didn't have a lot of those blessings. It wasn't even really almost considered even ethical back then. Like, you didn't spoil the child, spare the rod, spoil the child was the thing before too, as opposed to peaceful parenting, which I have been a strong advocate for 15 years now. Since I've been online, I've been advocating for peaceful parenting, even though many of the people in my circles are much more the spare the rod, spoil the child type. And, so I've never formed my opinions based on popularity. So, which I think I do pay a social and economic price for also, but I believe in it just as a foundational way of going through life. You have to, you have to toe that line. So, you need diversity of thought anyway, within a society. So we got, basically, you've got several Democratic proposals for higher taxes this last week. You got another huge blasphemy from Trump. Again, that's not so much. Let's just not focus on that right now. Really, it should be on the state stuff. Now, here's the thing, and somebody's have mentioned it to me this week, that they noticed, my Commie Karen thing, I'm always saying Commie Karen Klobuchar, and, I think that's going to be extraordinarily effective. And it's not only effective, but it's true. These people want to take away your ATVs. What do we hear this week, right? What do we hear from your so-called Democrat Farm and Labor this week, huh? Democrat Farm and Labor, really? They want, again, they're after the cows. They want to be able to use some kind of animal crime code against the farmers. They want to get rid of your ATV trails and your snowmobiles and everything. They want to raise your taxes on any assets you have at the end of the year. That'll get taxed. So you have to make what? What is their tax going to be on your assets? Let's say it's even 3%. So you have to pay 3% a year just to keep your stuff. Right? So who agrees for that unless you have no stuff and you're just living off the money they give you? And then you're voting to just steal from other people because what? Life is unfair to you or something? Or I don't understand. Because I can't remember a moment in my life when I sat there and thought, wow, life is being fair to me. Honestly. So, and then I've never thought, life's not fair, so I can steal from other people, or I can do all this other stuff that you people want to do. That you can just stab this poor white lady. That's another thing that came out this week. I don't want, I do agree in some case. I'm not really big focused, as anybody who knows me knows, I'm not really focused so much on the white thing or whatever, right? I'm a Norseman. I'm a Nordic Minnesotan. I'm a Scandinavian Minnesotan. That's my identity. That's how I see myself. I don't see myself as white necessarily because I'm not English. I have nothing to do with the English. I'm 12.5% German, and Minnesota is a heavily Germanic culture also. Probably 80% of the people here are German these days, or 60% anyway. There's probably more Germans than Scandinavians. I would almost say certainly. But when you say white, that lumps me into a category with Englishmen and Jews and Italians and, I guess we're kind of the same as the Irish. The Irish are pretty close cousins, or the Scots-Irish, the hillbillies we're kind of cousined up with them. That kind of thing. But, I don't like being lumped in, especially with the English. I don't like anything English. I don't like golf. I don't like, and my views have softened a little on royalty because I do understand, and we've maybe talked about this, but, you guys have to understand that there's really only the royalist system, and then there's been like the communist system, right? But it's really just the royalist system that protects property rights. It's the crown. It's centered in London. That's really and that ended up centered there because it was an island. And so it was a safe place for royalty all over the world to store their wealth and things. And it's now, even in modern times, there's other islands like the Cayman Islands or whatever where people hide their money. So it's not a concept people don't understand. But that system, whether we like the English or not, they do run, maintain, and protect the system that the royalties do. So if you want your property rights, you got to accept other people's property rights. And that's really what the fundamental conflict has been for a very, very long time now. And I've talked about this many years ago. I really don't talk about that theory that much anymore, but, I've made this association all the way back to the idea of nomads versus farmers, right? It's really a conflict that's gone on since that time. Do I have a right to just go around and take, or, do I establish property and put work in and defend my property and my work, right? So they're just two different survival strategies that have existed within the human story since at least after the flood, right? So since the time, probably like in the very beginning, I think actually some of the people probably right away, very early on, started farming and things like that. So there was probably a difference between the farmers and the raiders or whoever. Even among the Scandinavian people, Viking was, as I'm sure everybody's heard a million times, Viking was actually a profession or like a verb or it is also an adventurer, right? So adventure is to adventure. To go adventuring is obviously a verb, and adventure is a noun, but that's what Viking really meant, right? So, but pretty much since the flood, you can say that there's been this kind of fundamental conflict between farmers and nomads. Which even goes back to this whole concept of, are we on stolen land, and we're back to the flag. So, which is the main focus of this. I'm going to beat the drum on it until Election Day. And again, we're tied in. I hate to even have it 2 weeks in a row that way. It's kind of like he ruined Easter. But you got to bring it up. Because he did it on Easter, and then he did the second one on Orthodox Easter. So it's just blasphemy multiplied by blasphemy. So that's the spiritual thought for the week, and it still ties into that theme that's been going on since the first episode, when I've been curious about the whole Catholic demon thing or whatever. And that's also been still very much so in my feed with Sean Ryan and these different, the Catholics are quite prevalent in the news and in my feed and stuff lately. And that might be because I talk about it and the algorithms picked it up or something. But it's quite present. So, yeah, Jesus and coffee. And so the commie Karen Klobuchar. I think, and well, before we go on to that, again, so Lisa Damuth, go back, look in my feed. I shared the plan, and I shared a clip that she came out and had that I think was the best messaging she's had so far. So that plan with that message, combined with, you know, the attack of Commie Karen Klobuchar, that's going to be our kind of winning formula, and then the flag. And that has to translate, I hope, into action by the Republicans in the following sessions, assuming they win, right? So they do say they're going to cut the taxes, cut the tabs. I would like to see a complete rollback of the assault on farming and farmers. That's an absolute priority that we have to push for, and that every Republican needs to think about and focus about. Do you want... look, let's put everything else aside. Are you a Minnesotan? You're born and raised here, your family settled here, and you grew up here, you're anywhere near my age, and then you don't have respect for farming and farmers and cows? You're a human being with half of a brain for the last 2,000 years, and you don't know that cows are important? Okay, so you have to look at that. You have to look at that. You can't just blow it off and go, whatever. You have to look at that. The fact that we just keep ignoring it and being like, whatever, they're taking over everything. They're ruining it. I'm telling you, it's a flock of, it's a new kind of bird called the Commie Karen. And it's a flock of Commie Karens flying around, crapping on the whole state with their BS. And we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to absolutely purge those people from the party, like we talked about last week. And again, this is a message to Democrats. I mean, we don't have that problem over here. So you guys have to do that. You're ruining the state. You're ruining everything. And if anything, at this point, you know, I'm sure I have lots of friends and family, and there's going to be lots of people that are, most of the state, we've talked about that before, is Democrat. You guys have to start having some shame for this stuff. Yes, you want to stand up for gay rights. No, that doesn't mean you make all our representatives have to be gays and lesbians. And then the whole state's financial and physical priorities and everything we're going to do is going to be focused around gays, lesbians, and some refugees from wherever a stand. No, that's not a focus. That's a thing that you do. That's fine that you do that a part of something, but you don't revolve the state around idiots. Okay? You don't do that. You can't do that. You should be ashamed of doing that. You should be ashamed of Waltz. You should be ashamed of Omar. You should be ashamed of these people. You should be ashamed of that good, whatever good, if that's even a real person. These are they're all out-of-state people, by the way, that good and that Pretty or whatever. So the guy's name is Pretty, and the girl's name is Good. And that's just more coincidences with all these names. Just like on Fox, they used to have that guy... Buck Sexton or whatever. Like, these names aren't just completely made up characters. It's really ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. So in neither of those videos do you see it clearly enough, and that's always the case too, right? It's always, oh, it's so not clear what happened, right? That's because who knows if that really even happened, to be quite frank. What kind of horse crap that even was. You know. So we are living in next level Soviet Union propaganda here. If you see it on the TV, it's very likely, 100 plus degrees away from the truth. You know, maybe not 180, but it's far enough away from the truth to where it's closer to the 180 than it is to the truth, you know. So, yeah, so... what else was in the news this week? I mean, that's really it. The spiritual thought, again, is just, it's just kind of not positive and tainted 2 weeks in a row by the great leader here. And then he comes out and he's like, I was a doctor. I thought it was me as a doctor. Like, we're all just retarded. Like, nobody... I don't know, man. So... anyway, we stay focused on that because it's absolutely true. These are commie Karens a flock of commie Karens crapping on the state. Somebody should make like a meme about that, like a comic meme or something. Use AI, make a flock of commie Karens crapping on the state. But they want to take away your ATVs, your snowmobiles. They want to take away your gun rights. They want to tax you even more because you're not taxed enough. They want to bring even more people here. They're taking money from everybody else. Everybody else are and saying, us here in the city, we were so hurt by the ICE operation. You have to pay us now. You have to give us money now. Poor us. Oh, it cost us money now. I don't know how anybody, every time I turn on I see a clip of anything like that, it just blows my mind beyond comparison. I don't know how anybody in the state looks in that and is not upset, except for some kind of just loser trash sitting in the city. Like, how am I getting free money out of this? You know, some kind of, it's so, it's pure economic warfare that's going on right now. There's no comparison to the amount of work that me and my wife have done in our working life now up till 50 years old, and the absolutely pathetic economic reward that we've gotten in return for that compared to what a boomer would have got for half the work, quarter the work, would have got a quarter of the work, got 100 times the wealth. So we just keep getting screwed, and then they keep talking about raising taxes. So who's voting for this? You know, so the bottom line is every single person in the state of Minnesota who is tired of this has to get out and vote in the midterms. And every single Democrat just has to either stay home or throw a protest vote for something else. But you have to stop. You have to stop. This is not, we're only a couple of years away. This is in a really bad direction. And then they're just going to, they're not like openly taking property. They're taking and taxing it and then taking it. You know, they just had a story in the news. What do they want? They put a story in the news about some person where the sheriff went to evict them and they got in a shootout. No mention of why that person felt it was unfair that they were being evicted, right? No mention of what was going on there. Just, we got to stand by the sheriffs as they go and start evicting people. Now, why is a story like that in the news right now? You know, they pick everything, the messaging they put out there, the stories they put out there, they pick them specifically for a reason. Right? You have a limited amount of time each day for these stories, the limited amount of stories you put out. So those are clearly going to be, you know, prioritized. Anybody with any sense understands that. So you understand that if they put that story out, there's a reason, a reasoning and a thinking behind it, you know, because there's 1,000 events a day. You can go, whoa, what was a bad thing that happened? Well, 100 other bad things happened that day. All of them could have been made a story too, but this particular one was made a story. So, just really disappointing at tax time and this short after Easter, and then, but you know what? And I do have Orthodox friends that are also, you know, check out my feeds sometimes and that, and to them. Spiritual thought this week, happy Orthodox Easter. Same love and reverence as last week. And again, sad that it has to be polluted by Trump. And, you know, I'm just personally convinced at this point. I'd heard that stuff before and I kind of thought, but I'm convinced, especially after what he just did these last 2 weeks. I mean, this guy has to be a Jew. I mean, he must have converted to that Lubavitch something or another, whatever, cult or whatever that they got going on there. And I just don't see another explanation. But either way, you know, one of the things about Trump, and I discussed that in another issue too, again, I'll reiterate that none of us ever really thought he was a Christian, but he paid homage to Christianity. He showed respect and deference and acknowledge that this was a Christian country and things like that. Now he wants to do this, and then I know he had a big beef with the Pope last time too. And this is originally a Protestant country. A lot of Protestants don't even view Catholics as Christian, which I think is awful, but they also don't view Mormons as Christian, which I also think is awful. So, I understand there's some kind of tradition of that among the Anglo-Americans, the English Americans, the English and Jewish Americans. And the English and the Jew have been allied for a long time. It's not like it just happened 5 minutes ago. It's been a long time. So, it's just, this is an American Pope, and he was just calling for peace and stuff. And that's what a Pope would be doing, right? What do you want the Pope to get up there and be like, blessed be Trump and his war? I mean, what is wrong with you? So it was this last time there was some legitimate criticisms. That other Pope was half a commie. And this is an American Pope, and he's still crapping on him. Except for this time he's crapping on him just for calling for peace. And then he's gonna hack on a religious person for being weak. It's like some kind of bully. It's, so Christian people know that the greater strength is in following our Lord and being peaceful and choosing peace and that. And so, again, very Jewish to be like choosing peace and whatever is some kind of weakness. It doesn't mean that we don't all, there's a lot of Christians who say, hang everybody and this and that too. And they would stone all the stuff. A lot of that stone the gays stuff. Yeah, everybody talks crap about the Muslims for. That's all New Testament stuff. That's in the New Testament. So we've looked it up before. It's in the New Testament. It says to stone them. I think it's in the New Testament where it says to throw them off a building too, I think. But but you can't say. But like no real Christian would say that whichever Christian that's saying more, no, peace, love, and happiness, that's a weak Christian. Like it's just so not a Christian thing to say about the Pope or anybody else, or the Pope in particular. And it's not it's not a particular reverence to the Pope. But it's the reverence to a Christian leader. I guess I'm a little bit hypocritical because probably if it was the previous Pope, I wouldn't have cared so much. And if it was, did you see the English now, the new Anglican Pope is a lesbian female? And it's all like gay pride and stuff. So again, you can be a Christian and be like, we definitely should not be stoning gays or doing anything bad to them. But, but this advocating, it's really, so maybe in that sense, anyway, I've thought that maybe the Catholics are right about that. Maybe like Trump he acts like he's been possessed by a demon, like some kind of, he's opened himself up to some kind of evil force, by denying Christ. His daughter denied Christ and he said he was happy about it. And, Christians know that if you don't teach your kids the gospel, then their sins are on you. If you do teach them the gospel, then their sins are between, and maybe you're forgiven. And, I'm not going to get into the whole freaking eternal loop of it all. But, just on the surface, your kid's sins are on you if you don't teach them the gospel. So if you're like, telling your kid, no problem, deny Jesus. It's no big deal. I'm happy for you. Good for you. I wouldn't do that. I would, as a Christian, if you're a Christian, you'd be afraid to do that. Though it's not supposed to be out of fear. It's from your heart, but I would be devastated. I would just be devastated if my daughter came to me and said, I'm going to be a Jew now. I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm already devastated. I got to hear this. Marxist garbage from my kids sometimes, and I'm just heartbroken. I'm like, what are you talking about? I taught you so much better than that. And then I have to hear it from them. Some crap about the patriarchy or some crap about whatever. It's really, really disheartening. So, but, yeah. So, what else was I wanting to talk about? I pretty much covered everything there, actually, pretty quickly. I think I'm talking kind of quickly today, too. So, yeah, taxes, tax day, Trump's blasphemy, the county commissioner thing, the commie Karen thing. Stay focused on the narrative. Still got to stay focused on the narrative of the Somalis. It's not a racism thing. Don't let anybody tell you anything about it. They got to go. There's no obligation for them to be here. They messed it up. All the Democrats that participated have to be prosecuted, have to go to jail, have to get out of the state. They have to leave. I don't care. That's not even a race thing. If you're white, black, or neon green, get out. Go away. Go away. Take your stuff. Go back to California. Go back to Oklahoma. Go back to Washington, D.C. Go back to Detroit. Take your shit and get out of here. Just get gone. Get gone. We took enough people from Chicago. We took a bunch of people from Louisiana and stuff with open arms, by the way, and love, and integrated them. We took the Hmongs. We loved and integrated them. I thought we'd, turn the page on everything with the natives and loved and integrated them, but they just can't seem to help but want to jump right on the Marxist bandwagon and be down there, whatever. Oh, and I get it, I get it, like physically, I could see where natives might get mistaken for South American or something like that, but if you're native, you're going to be immediately identified with your tribe or whatever, and you're going to be, that's not going to happen. I highly doubt, if at all, actually, I can't say I'm sure because, that would be, nobody's sure of anything, but I'd say I'm 99.999% sure that no natives got sent to, like, that Florida. None of them got processed beyond being brought down to that, Whipple building or whatever, where everybody's down there making a fool out of themselves, beating up Latinas, pushing Latinas to the floor because they don't agree with your hate ICE propaganda. By the way, did you notice that if you look at those protests, that's all people there in like little costumes and outfits, and it's just all people getting attention. Probably half of them are paid. This is what I'm talking about as a Minnesotan. Is that what we want? That's not embarrassing to us. I know, growing up here, I'm a talkative person. I've always been kind of, people have kind of, hacked on me for talking too much and this and that. People don't want attention here. We're very passive aggressive. We're very much, I live in a place where people will drive 58 in a 60, but speed up to 72 to stop you from passing them. That's a for real thing. That happens here. So what are you talking about? Why are we letting this happen? Why are you letting those people represent you? How have you let yourself get cucked like that? How have you let yourself get convinced that you have to be quiet, that you have to vote for that's virtuous, right? How did that happen? How do all these white women think that it's virtuous to switch the demographics on their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren? So you get to virtue signal now and feel like you're a little special girl and you're a little commie Karen doing your part to fight the patriarchy, right? But you don't stop to think even 1 second like how it's going to affect your grandkids or your kids, your boys. You don't even want to have boys. You want to take your boys and turn them into girls. I've literally worked with a guy years ago now already, 10 years ago or more. I would work with a guy who would come to work and tell me about, oh yeah, my wife is putting my son in dresses and blah, 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 but there's, I don't really like it, but whatever, and da-da-da. And I'm like, you're a turd, man. You're just a loser. You're just a loser. Why are you doing that? Why are you letting your female tell your male child that being male is somehow wrong? Why are you letting her confuse him and abuse him like that? Why are you letting that happen? Why are you letting the TV tell you that that's something virtuous? Why are you ignoring the fact that that's happening in small little clusters of uppity white women that are doing that, who are all, everybody knows that the culture among those people is disturbing at the least. You see that in the Epstein files and stuff like that. These people have a completely different way of looking at things than most of the common Minnesotans and the rural Minnesotans. This is a very conservative religious culture, and always has been since I was a kid. This was Little House on the Prairie, This wasn't hedonist California or hedonist New York. This was Minnesota. So how is it now that we just sit back and tolerate all this? And then and then when your boy has already killed himself because you cut his dick off, excuse my language, because you cut his stuff off, or your kids you didn't have, or whatever aren't around, so then you're going to be like, well, let's bring in a bunch of third world slaves to take care of me in my old age because I didn't want to have a family, because I wanted to be an idiot. What about all the dudes? I'm talking about the girls, but the dudes are a disgrace. Just a disgrace. Just a shame. You're so pathetic. Honestly, this whole show should be talking to you young dudes and dudes all the way up to my age, and the boomer dudes. I mean, you boomer dudes too are pathetic. You guys were always pathetic, Go out to the bar and get bossed around by your woman as long as you can go to the bar and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was all, what a joke. So, yeah. Pick up your sacks. Talk to your ladies. Look at your kids. Look at your grandkids. Pull your head out of your fifth point of contact. Wake up. What are you doing? You're being pawns in you want to be Marxist pawns in some stupid game that's destroying everything that we have? No. Can't do that. So, it's just really upsetting, this whole, we're going to prioritize only the electric scooters and stuff, and we're going to take away all the small alternative vehicles and things like that from people. We don't want dirt bikes, snowmobiles, ATVs. Next thing you know, they're going to come for the racing. They're going to come for all that stuff, all of it. You're not going to have your mud races. You're not going to have your ice races. You're not going to have your Bajas. You're not going to have your crash up derbies. You're not going to have your dirt track. You're not going to have your stocks. You're not going to have your modifieds. You're not going to have your sprint cars. You're not going to have your go-karts. You're not going to have anything. You're not going to have nothing. Nothing. You're going to have your nothing over 300 watts, by the way, in the city by the time they get done. They started going, 1,500 watts. Wait till you're down to 300 watt little, these little skateboard things that the little kids have and stuff. And that's it. That'll be what you have. Because you had to give everything away to commie Karens because you got to vote by who you sleep with. By your perversions or your desire for abortion or your desire, whatever. There's Republican gays too. You don't have to be a Democrat because you're gay. You can't have a political party based on gays. What is that? You're going to have a political party based on gays and third world refugees. That's going to be your whole priority. The whole state's priorities, our economics, our life, our morals, our everything. We're all just going to revolve around gays, trannies, and refugees. That's our whole life now. And we're just going to sit back quietly while you take away the cows. Nobody really complained when you took away with pigs because pigs stink. But that's what happened. You did take away the pigs and you gave them to Mexico. You took away our timber industry and a lot of our dairy. You just devastated our dairy and you took away our timber and you gave that to Canada. Wisconsin still has some dairy, but you hit us pretty hard. And our weak, pathetic Minnesota leadership lets us do that. They let us mine here, but they don't let us process the ore, right? So, you have manufacturing that can't get paid, can't get decent benefits. Rest of you don't care because you've got your government benefits, right? You're your police or your fire or your HR or something, or you went to university, you don't care, you work at the U of M, who cares? Who cares? Ha 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 ha. I got my health care and my $30 copay and my retirement, and what do I care if somebody working in a factory has a $7,000 deductible? What do I care? What do I care? Right? You guys suck. You all suck. And I shouldn't, I kind of debate whether I should, in this page, be more aggressive or less aggressive. Obviously that more aggressive genre is being filled by some other people. I've never been really the aggressive messaging. And I know my messaging has been a little bit more brutal lately, but that's because, it's a sign of the times. I understand that we were softer about things before, but we really have to stop being soft about these things because we're getting rolled by fools and degenerates. You know what I mean? It's like, I've had jobs, you have jobs, whatever. You get screwed over by somebody or whatever at a job or in life, whatever it might be, a neighbor, I don't know, whatever. You get screwed over by somebody. If it's somebody where you go, like specifically about a job or something, you got somebody kind of screws you over at work or whatever. If that's a competent person and you're like, this person's crushing, it's like, okay, you know what I mean? I got out there on the battlefield. It is what it is. Just like sports, right? If you go out and you get beat by a team that's a great team, you're like, yeah, we get put in the good fight and we got beat by a great team, But if you go out there and you get rolled for some reason by just some turd loaf, just some incompetent, spoiled, usually nepotistic, just some turd loaf who doesn't even know they're a turd loaf. And, somebody like Waltz, just a turd loaf. The guy is a literal turd loaf. He's a big loaf of turd. Like you'd put him in an oven and watch the turd loaf rise. Fluffy turd loaf, turd ball. It's like insult to injury. Just like that flag is insult to injury. Why does the flag matter? The flag matters because it's insult to injury. Because it's crapping on our history and our sacrifice and everything we did. It's a part of a narrative that discounts our history or makes it bad or wrong on behalf of people who have no history here at all. No reason to even be talking. They're zero heroes. They're nothing. This country wasn't built by Somalia. You're not a big contribution to us. If you're from India in the last 20 years or wherever you're from in the last 20 years, you came here after this was settled and built. We didn't need you. We didn't want you. You were brought here for whatever, or you just straight in, broke in. You just broke in somebody's house. You just went across the board. Good. Oh, you're a refugee. I get it. We could do something in those countries. Me personally, I would say if people start pouring out of your country, the 82nd Airborne pours in. That's what we should do, at least in the Americas, If you F up as a government and your people start pouring into our country, 82nd Airborne and the whole military pours into your country, arrests everybody, takes everything you have, new elections, hang them all, new elections. We don't need 10 million of your people here because you suck. And it isn't our problem. None of it's our problem. And we're not racist for saying we don't want that. Okay? It's absurd. Your logic is absurd. You have no logic. You know that if you suddenly replace the population here, if you took and suddenly the population was 95% Somali and 5% white, you would not say that this was Minnesota. This would be Somalia. Right? It's common sense, dude. You can't replace a people and then tell them it's the same because it's the same land. A nation is its people. A nation is a nation of people. Minnesota is a nation of people that have a combined history, and our nation of people is kind of blended with some nations around. We're a multi-nation, but that doesn't just include any nation that wants to show up here tomorrow. Because there's more than one nation in Minnesota, that means any nation can come here from anywhere. No, they can't. No, they can't. Not even from Europe. Not even from Europe. We can't have, 10 million Poles move here tomorrow. Then this would be Poland. And there's lots of Polish people here. Can't have 10 million Norwegians move here tomorrow. It would be Norway and not Minnesota. Okay? So there's no logic in it. There's no decency in it. There's nothing but shame and evil and stupidity in it. That's the only thing that can be in there. Stupidity and evil and shame. That's all that it makes up all of your policies right now. All of your transgender policies, all your gay policies, all your immigration policies, all your taxing policies, all your financial policies, and all your regulation policies are made up of evil, stupidity, and whatever the third thing I said. It's just evil and stupidity, and incompetence and degradation. And there's just no way we can turn this whole place over to communists. And that's what's happened. So, Commie Karen Klobuchar and her flock of commie Karens flying around pooping on the state. And half those Karens are little effeminate men, little gay men, flying around with them, pooping on everything. And I don't want it to go back out. When I was a kid here, I would have friends that would go down to like Loring Park and shoot the gays, like with paintball guns and stuff like that, BB guns, or throw stuff at them, yell at them. I knew people that would rob them, honestly, because they were gay and the police wouldn't protect them. So they were open victims because they wouldn't be protected by the police. So that was true. That happened. It was awful. I never participated. I said, you guys are effed, and I'm not doing that, and I'm not participating in that. And I got razzed for that too, by the way. I did get razzed for that. I didn't care. I took it. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not doing it. So you go ahead. I'm not doing it. Especially not robbing them and stuff like that. But they were victimized before, and the cops wouldn't protect them and stuff. That's true. And that should have ended, and it did end. Long time ago. Should have ended, it did end. That doesn't mean that then suddenly we change our entire education program to have tranny story hour and start teaching kids at school about genital mutilation and that boys can be girls and all this other stuff. The people at the time, it was, there was something back then, as even being a Republican, I was a libertarian Republican, and the big beef against us is that our main political force back then was the Christian Coalition. And they would rail about that, and they would say, the next thing, they would say stuff like that. Oh, the next thing they're going to be teaching your kid in school to be gay, and they're going to be wanting the kids and this and that. And people like me who thought we were reasonable, moral, virtue signaling people would be like, God, that's crazy. That's crazy. They'll never do that. We just don't want them getting, shot with BB guns. It's fucked up. It's messed up. Don't do it. And they were right. Give an inch, take a mile. Here we are 30 years later, and all they want is the kids, man. All they want is the kids. That's gross. It's crazy. You can't tell me that there's even... I can't choose to believe that 90% of the people around me are not opposed to gender ideology in the schools. If there's more than 5% of you people around me here that think that gender ideology stuff in the schools is okay, I can't mentally process that. I have to choose to believe that that's not true. that somehow that is mispresented in the politics and the news, because if I were to believe that that was true, I just don't know how I could. My blood pressure is going up thinking about it. I can't believe I would be surrounded by that kind of. But then again, even when I was in high school, I could not understand how I was surrounded by so many people that seemed like nice, good people, and they would say that abortion is okay, that you can just kill a baby. I still don't get that to this day, but that has changed, And in all fairness, Trump helped affect that, He did. That's part of his legacy. So whatever this post-Epstein file Trump is, and did you see too? Oh, that was another thing I wanted to talk about. One of the biggest things too, that Melania came out and did that statement from the White House, and tell me I wasn't right about that. Right now, she participated. Jeffrey and Ghislaine was the same thing as Trump, and she was the same thing as Ghislaine, but for Eastern Europe. Right? Ghislaine was Florida, probably Europe too, Western Europe, like England and stuff, and then Melania was doing Eastern Europe. And this chick who's going to dime them all out was doing South America, Brazil, centered around Brazil. And they were all recruiting girls that way. And Melania's involved in that. I thought from the beginning, when I first heard that, I'm like, he's protecting Melania. And originally I thought it was because he bought her from him. That may also still be true. But I think it's more than that. I think she was basically a madam also. She was participating. And I think that statement, boy, that just convinced me even more. And then to find out that statement was trying to get ahead of this Uganda chick or whatever her name is, coming out and saying that she's going to dime out Melania and saying Melania's evil and this and that. Just like the girls talked about Ghislaine or whatever. So, yeah, really, really interesting that's going on. And then, but we just can't let that affect, our voting here in Minnesota. So, but either way, whatever happened with Trump, that's what I was going to say. So I think that's part of it, but now I've even come to believe that not only with her, but it must have been with him too. I think they're just both, really bad news. The whole thing's bad news. And I think what happened is that happened quite a while ago, and then he probably kind of got away from it, and it's something from his past catching back up to him. And then when he asked the FBI, hey, see if I'm in there or whatever, and he was thinking, maybe I'm in there, but what do they really know, this and that, and then I think he found out, and he saw that he's going to have to face who he really is and who she really is, and it pinged him out. He lost it, and then he's he's so obviously under the control of whoever, for whatever reason. Is he under control? I would say it's pretty obvious that whatever's the stuff they're holding back he's under the control of that. Whoever's holding that back or able to hold that back, or somebody's got dirt on him. But he just completely flipped from everything. And it's just, it's really it's a bummer. So, and I know the whole narrative from the left now is, you didn't know. You didn't know, and nobody knew. And nobody ever thought he was Mr. Perfect or anything like that. But, I did say from the get-go, he owned all those pageants. And everybody knows that all that pageantry stuff is all basically prostitution and molestation and God knows what, all the modeling stuff, all the Hollywood stuff. Right? That's not stuff that came out 5 minutes ago. When I was a kid, everybody knew that. If you would have asked me when I was 10 years old, hey, someday when you have a daughter, will you let her go to Hollywood? I would have been like, no, she's not going to Hollywood. Now I would have to be like, maybe it's so bad here that what would be the difference? That's the Hollywood came here. That's the thing that nobody could have anticipated. So yeah, big news this week, really. A big, Trump with his bigger blasphemy, Melania coming out with her big statement. the Democrats coming out with more taxes and more regulations on recreational stuff and agriculture, farming. I mean, they're just, at this point, really here in Minnesota, I mean, we are being, rural Minnesota and traditional Minnesota, we are being completely devastated. We're being defeated. They've raised their own flag over us, and now they're it's like Rome has already been sacked. The new flag's up, and now it's rub it into the population's face time. It's, start taking crops, start killing everybody. Anybody resist, kill them publicly. This time it's figurative. They try to vilify you or whatever. The whole thing. I mean, they are really. They won this thing in the city with Trump. Trump, what he did here in the city and then pulling out, not going all the way and winning was the worst thing that could have happened. Then they're coming back after they did all that, caused all that trouble, did that whole thing, put on that whole scene, and then they're like, oh, now you owe us money. Now you owe us money. It's wild. It is wild what's happening. And again, I certainly don't want to be seen as advocating for violence or anything like that, but I have to say, I mean, this is the kind of thing that led to the IRA. This is the kind of thing that throughout history has never happened before without a physical response. This is really unbelievable what's happening, and we're just laying down for it. And if we can't even muster a political response, let alone a physical response, we're just laying down for this. We have to not do that. We have to not do that. We have to mount a political response, or there will eventually be a physical response. That is historically proven one way or the other. And certainly, when the 2030 agenda comes along, I mean, they're cooking right along. You're going to have a whole North and South American unions. You're going to have your regions. We're going to be in our region. And you can just see it as clear as day. Most of the deals are already done. Most of the structure's already there. All your councils, your Met councils, your FEMA councils, all your trade deals. They're making deals that tell you how much somebody's going to get paid here compared to how much somebody's going to get paid in Mexico. This and that. They're not even telling the people. Everything's kept secret from the workers. These people, they don't even think they're lying anymore. The entire business leadership class here in Minnesota, the manufacturing leaders, it's not lying. It's just the job. It's just part of the job. They don't think that they're nepotistic, lying worms with no honor and integrity. They think that it's just the way it is. It's the way it's got to be. And that's what they're doing. And, when you're lying to all the workers and you're doing this us versus them thing, then you're wrong, right? If you can't tell people the truth, there's a reason you can't tell them the truth. Right? So, there's already no labor market. At least in some things, there's no labor market. A lot of these markets now are completely seized by Marxists and government people. A lot of these positions are seized by. They're taking over, man. They're past that point of they're over the hill and they're full speed ahead. They're full speed ahead. They've breached the wire. And it's full speed ahead from here. So, we have to try to plug that breach in the wire, politically speaking, or it will end up being what it's going to be. So, read a history book and see how that goes. Bad news. It doesn't even have to be that long ago. That's what happened in Venezuela. So look how that panned out for them. Next thing you know, we don't have any geese left because they ate all the geese. They were eating the zoo animals down there for a while when their economy fell apart. So that's what happened to Russia. That's what happens to them all. So we're not going to learn that lesson. We're going to let that come here. We got to hit our head against the wall. Figuratively, we can't just learn from others and not do it. So stay focused, get the word out. counter their fake narrative as much as possible. There's no way. Look, even if you believe that this state is 80% libtard, just tell yourself it's 80% not libtard and pretend. We just got to pretend and plug forward and see what happens, because we don't have a choice. Every single person has to get out and vote. Every person has to, it's like putting on the full armor of God, religiously speaking. People talk about that, first of all, don't watch it. Don't watch the propaganda. If you see it and you're like, okay, this is propaganda, stop watching it, man. Fox or NPR or any of that. Once you start watching the one, whichever side you're on, you start watching the other one, and then you go back after a few weeks or a few months or whatever. I mean, this is years ago for me now, but I can't even watch it anymore. You watch it and you're just like, you can't even believe that you used to watch it, And don't feel like that's, something like, who's this guy think he is, and this and that, and I know better, and da-da-da-da. It's designed that way. It's not just, doesn't mean you're dumb or that you've been tricked, or, well, you have been tricked. We've all been tricked. You can know how they're tricking you, and they can still trick you. You have to stop being exposed to it. You have to stop being exposed to it. And you have to accept, you got to start standing up for yourself, and you have to accept that throwing yourself under the bus and your children under the bus is not virtuous. There's nothing virtuous about it. And you got to do the right thing and the tough thing before they take away the cows. You want them to take away the chickens and the turkeys? You're going to take away all the animals because you don't like the smell of them? I kind of get it again about the pigs. I mean, the pigs were tough news, man. And they would smell for miles and miles, and pigs are bad news. I don't think anybody's really super upset that the pigs are on. But, check out my feed. Check out some of the stories on there. A lot of fun stories on there. A couple of funny ones. A couple of good memes. Get the word out. Talk amongst yourself. Talk to your friends. Let them know, so everybody feels like they can feel the wave, the tide turning, and they don't feel any more socially or morally pressured to play along with these, whatever they are. This thing that's happening here. You don't have to play along with it. You should not play along with it. There's no virtue in playing along with it. In fact, the opposite. So, it's like and for them as well. For them, right? So, I mean, I would assume, there's probably a lot of gay people who were like, man, we just wanted to not get shot with paintball guns. And now they're letting these trannies who want to talk to little kids represent us. And I don't want to, there's probably a lot of them that don't want to be represented by the extremes of their own ideology, right? There's Christians that don't want to be represented by the extreme of their own ideology. That's why a lot of them are against Muslims, if you want to know the truth. They view that as being the extreme end of their own ideology, right? It's like fundamentalism. So, as a person that's pretty conservative, right-wing, pro, my own people and my own history and this and that, I don't want to be represented by the extremes of my ideology who are haters. I'm not a hater. I'm not a hateful person. I don't hate anybody. I don't want bad things to happen to them. I'm just not stupid enough to believe that means that I have to let them do whatever they want and have whatever they want and pay for everything. And that's not there's no moral equivalence there, right? I want them to be happy and healthy where they belong, and I want to be happy and healthy where I belong. I want my child to grow up where I want my child to grow up. I don't want that to be involuntarily changed by some outside forces, which is what is happening. We discussed that last time. So historically speaking, what is occurring here is the same as like when the English brought the Scots-Irish to Ireland and things like this, and when different populations get moved around. Okay, these are hostile acts. What's happening to us here, it's not a hostile act from the Somalis, okay, in some ways, but I mean, it's not something where you go, oh, these people are not like they're not invaders in the sense of hostile invaders. Though some of them are criminals and things like that. A lot of these illegals, apparently, they let pour in here, were actual violent criminals and things like that. A lot of the Somalis were probably violent criminals back where they came from, where there was no law and things like that. So, but the act, they didn't bring themselves here. Whoever said, hey, let's take this group that's as far opposite as possible from this other group and stick them both together here. Bring this group over to this group. That's done as a hostile act by somebody. Okay? And you're just a flat-out pussy if you don't stand up. That's the fact. Stop thinking that you're virtuous. Stop thinking that your mommy loves you. You're a pussy. Don't expect the women to stand up and say no. They don't do that. They don't do that in any culture. Women don't do that. It's the men that have to do that. The men have to stand up and say no. Okay? And that is the way it is. So, get it together. Get it together, guys. Be proud of yourselves. Vote in your own self-interest. And don't be hateful in the process. Because it's not about hate. It's about loving your own, not hating others. And it's about defending yourself. We are under, legitimate, economic, devastating attack. As a Gen Xer, it is so unbelievable what has been done to us compared to the boomers. And the boomers are the ones doing it, and they're still doing it. And again, just as Gen Xers and younger, we're all being pussies. We're not standing up. None of you are standing up. None of you even say anything. I'm the only person who ever says anything to these freaking boomers. I'm the only one who says anything about any of it. I'm the only one that complains about the pay. I'm the only one who complains about the treatment. I'm the only one who complains about the classism and everything else. I do it to the owners of businesses, to the city managers and the politicians and all that stuff. I don't see anybody else doing it. I just don't see it happening. You see a couple of characters up there like Royce White and stuff who you do see some political characters that give some voice to it, but I just don't see other people like average Joe Schmoes like me even standing up at all. I never see any of them standing up to anything. Anything, anywhere. But then they can have some freaking hate ICE rally down there, and a bunch of libtards dressed up like furries will show up down there and start trying to attack the cops like they can get away with it. And then what is that? What is that? What is that? George Floyd, riots, breaking stuff, this and that. But no men in this entire state will just stand up like a man and just be a fucking man? You're pathetic. You're pathetic. If you want to bow down to Amy Klobuchar, you're pathetic. If you want to bow down to any of these fat, worthless, middle-aged white chicks that want to tell you it's bad to be a man, you're pathetic. You're pathetic. That you have to turn everything over to everybody else, that you need to shut up and just die. You're pathetic. Show some survival instinct. Pick your sack up. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Our grandparents would be ashamed. Just to think how much they probably died just ashamed of their boomer kids. Watching these boomers just boom around all over the place. Just booming all over everything. Gross. Flock of commie Karens pooping all over the state. That's what they are. So, we have to stand up. We have to do something about it. And it's just gotten completely out of control. They've taken away everything. They're going to take away absolutely everything. You're going to have nothing left but 300 watt battery, something or another's. It's all you're going to have. Buses. They're going to take away your cars. They're going to, I don't know, man. Who's going to have a car? Only somebody who can afford a $200,000 Tesla. Nobody else is going to have a car, or what? That's obviously, I'm exaggerating, but, you're letting them change our way of life. You're letting them bleed us dry. They've ruined our education. They've ruined we had the best education in the country here. You all sit there and Minnesota education liberal. You're full of crap. You're full of crap and you know it. You know that wasting half the day talking about gender ideology and white privilege and what are these other ideologies they're teaching in the school, whatever, this stuff, their crap, supranationalism and all that. That's all they're not teaching. Math, science, biology, accounting, personal finance, government, civics, history, architecture. You know, you got all these people going to university. You know, people can go to trade school, but you still can't make any money. But you can go to university. And if you happen to get a job in that, and you know what the truth is too, none of you want to admit, going to university, if you don't have if it's not some nepotistic thing where your family's gonna, you know somebody or you're going to that school for a specific job that you know you're going to get into or whatever, that you're going to end up at McDonald's anyway with a bunch of debt, and then you're going to complain about it. But you also can't go to trade school and then make any money. Then you can't. Then you go to trade school. Well, then you can't. You don't get a right to health care or retirement or nothing. We're just going to screw you over. So that and then they're all just doing all this immoral, horrible stuff. And they're not even like the best of the best. They're just nepo babies. It's all nepo babies. It's all people who just inherited it all and just shitting it all away. Mobsters, Murder Inc., Big Red Rock running around, running everything. Lame. Just lame. Why? Because all your vices and your sins? Is that some hypocritical judgment? No, I got vices and sins. That's not causing me to be a moron, a self-defeating moron. So stand up, support each other, communicate, get out there on social media, online, any way you can, make it clear so that they know the wave's coming. Democrats, go take your party back. DFLers, Democrat Farm and Labor, go take your party back from the coasty Democrats who came in here and took your party over and robbed us all because you're pathetic. Say what you want about Republicans, what was, and about Trump, but you know what? You all know that Trump was our way of fighting against the neocons. Even though obviously now you see what had happened. So just like your guys' Obama turned out to be a big lie too. Obama was the biggest lie in human history until now. Now Trump's the biggest lie in human history. Just a disgrace and a lie and a shame. And nothing has changed in 25, 30 years. Just gotten worse. So then you got this idiot Democrat today talking about, everything here is all because the immigrants are here, or you wouldn't have anything. That's the way the economy works. These people are so stupid. So it's not even time to discuss anymore. Don't argue with them. Don't nothing. Just tell them, be quiet. Nobody cares about your opinion anymore. Do not vote for them. Do not select them in your party. And preferably come in, I want to refrain from, constantly saying, hey, you got to vote Republican just because I'm a Republican, but you should. You should vote Republican. You should get out there and vote Republican in the midterms. Send that message. Get some fiscal responsibility. Get a tax cut. Get the tabs lowered. Maybe we can do something about utilities. Maybe we can do something about the cost of living in the state. Maybe we can expel some of these freeloaders. We cannot have a whole state of freeloaders. We can't do it. You've already bankrupted the whole state. You took all our money. You raised our taxes $10 billion and you spent all that money. Are you doing anybody a favor by letting them do it? If you have a kid and you give them money and they go and they blow it and then they come back, hey, I blew all that money and plus I borrowed some money from a bookie. And now I need some money. And you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Because that's what you're doing at this point. You've got this crackhead kid and you are and you're just feeding the crack addiction. That's what's going on. So let's cut them off. Let's cut off the addiction. Let's get some healing, and keep it up there. So, all right, that's this week. Live at 5 at 6. And we probably did a good hour there. I can see we did do a good hour there. Maybe about an hour and 10. A little bit of rants. Feel free to clip these, by the way. It'd be awesome if somebody knew how to clip them and share little clips. Feel free to comment, like, share. All that helps a lot. Even if you just get on there and click a like, something will help. It will help grow. So get the word out there. Stay strong. And we'll see you next week. I thought I might get better viewership if I put some content up every day or every other day or so. So I might start kind of trying to do that. But we'll see. But for now, for sure, we'll see you next Tuesday, live at 5 at Norseman News. Have a great week.